Welcome back, fellow audio enthusiasts. Yes, you do not need to adjust your YouTube. It is I, Jason, your host of 2-Channel Listening. It has been a hot minute since my last review. Things have kind of been on pause as I've been getting acquainted and used to operating at the music room as a broker in sales. And I have had a lot of high dollar products going through my room to give me that critical experience I need to really help clients of the music room find that next upgrade that is completely appropriate to their need. A lot of products that I normally would not review for you on this channel, stuff that's quite outside my own budget and my own comfort level with spending. Nevertheless, I am eternally grateful of having the opportunity of demoing said products, because I tell you what, it really does help me appreciate when I come across some incredibly high value, budget oriented, super well performing products. Yes. So today's review was made thanks to Leo over at Orchard Audio. A couple of months ago, Leo had reached out to me. He saw a few of my reviews on YouTube and asked me if I would be interested in covering any one of his products. Well, of course, Leo. As somebody who owns a Peachtree GaN 400 amplifier, I would love the opportunity to see what you have with your unique abilities and your own special sauce made up for your GaN FET, gallium nitride style topology Class D amplifier. So that brought me to reviewing this, the base model Starkrimson Ultra 2.0 amplifier. This 250 watt into 8 ohm or 500 watts into 4 ohm gallium nitride dual amplifier. And I will say that there are some very unique properties to this overall design. A design that is quite modular, and there are some special things that I should point out as we quickly talk about the fit and finish. But before I do that, do realize, because it has been a long time since I've reviewed, well, 6 months, yes, I've got some serious catching up to do for you all, and I will put little chapter markers in the timeline. So if you want to jump around to some very specific areas, I will add that for you, for those of you who are super hyper impatient. Nevertheless, fit and finish and overall design. Now, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty aspects of this amplifier, but I do want to point out that while Leo offered me anything from his catalog at Orchard Audio, including the highly upgraded, near $5,000 version of the Starkrimson Ultra 2.0, no, I chose to do the base model exactly as it comes, with none of the drop-down options selected, so that you really are getting what is a $2,600 250 watt Class D amplifier with the gallium nitride amp modules. That should go well against what my Peachtree cost. Initially, that Peachtree at launch cost $2,500 and is now since well below $2,000. Thank you, Peachtree, for killing some of our equity. Nevertheless, let's talk about this, the fit and finish for $2,600. You have a seriously modular design, and that is the key focus point of what this amplifier is. You're not getting fancy casework. You're not getting hardcore, ultra thick heat sinks because you have the Class D efficiency. One thing I will say about this is you don't even have a whole lot of venting built into the top or the bottom because it's not needed. This is such an efficient amplifier that even though I let it run for days on end, it stayed as cool as a cucumber Something I cannot say about my own Peachtree. That Peachtree, when that thing's running for just a few hours on end, it can reach 100 degrees, which is quite odd for a Class D amplifier. So again, no need for hardcore heat sinks. You're saving money there. You have a very straightforward, sturdy case. A little bit of ringing there. However, out of the box, I was quite impressed with the type of feet that Leo puts on here. These are some vibration absorbing feet with a little bit of spring to them, so that's a nice touch. And I would like to point out this pre-drilled case bottom. Look at all of these brass retainers. Lots of other holes that are not utilized at the moment because that is part of the modular design. So this amplifier can be upfitted with multiple option add-ons. It can be upfitted with $400 extra capacitance. It can be upfitted with an even higher level dual mono operation. What makes that so special is that you've got kind of an a la carte options. And something super unique to what Starkrimson Ultra 2.0 offers, or I should say what Leo offers, you the DIY person, you can buy this as a kit. You can buy this amplifier as a kit for you to put together and save another $700. That's kind of really crazy. That's kind of really interesting. As a matter of fact, I watched a YouTuber who's all about DIY, and that's Toids. So I will put a link to the description. I will put a link in the description to go watch that if those of you out there are interested in what it looks like to actually put this specific amplifier together from scratch with the modules and everything that you need to do to build your own $2,700 amp for $2,000, I highly recommend it. All right, around back, the simplicity continues. Power inlet, what you'll notice is you only have XLRs. This is a balanced design, and RCAs, if you need that, is an extra. You have just your XLRs, and you have just your basically your 5-way binding posts, good quality WBTs there. You can upgrade those as well to much higher level if you wish. Okay, pretty standard. A lot of value for the money. You're not paying for jewelry. You're not paying for anything super fancy or lights or all that. Has a very simple power button that lights up blue when it's time to go. And you're off to the races with this amplifier. Before I can jump into the listening impressions and how I set up my demonstration in the different systems, I have to talk about something that's a little bit of, should be a sidebar, but critical for you guys out there. When I'm helping customers or I'm even having these conversations, you hear me throw out a lot of numbers about SPLs or dB. When I'm listening, I like to keep my max SPLs below 85. I like to make sure that I'm listening within a 70 to 85 dB window. Well, let me tell you something. Also, the folks at Top Tests reached out to me and asked me to cover off on their new, very budget-friendly sound level meter. Now, this is the TS501B. They sent me a couple of them, and I've always used my trusty meter that's like $50 or plus now. I've had this for the last several years. Interesting to use what's basically a $23 meter on Amazon and the extra features that it has. It has built-in ambient temperature and humidity levels. As somebody who has a small listening room and I listen to tube amplifiers and I have a Class A amplifier behind me I will talk about in a minute, this is a critical piece. This is a piece that is critical for consistency when line leveling what you're listening to from song to song to make sure that You don't listen to one amplifier that's at 90 dB, another amplifier that's at 80 dB, and another amplifier that's only making it out to 75 dB, because they all have different input gains, different impedances, etc., etc. This is a super critical piece that is super cheap that every audiophile and enthusiast should have in their arsenal. Don't use those apps. Those apps are not as effective as using an actual sound pressure meter. As a matter of fact, there are times where it helps me when I'm having arguments with Amanda that I could say, stop, you're too loud. Forget that part, I didn't mean that. Anyway, get a sound pressure level meter. It is critical for consistency and protecting your own ears over the long run. I want to be able to do this for the next 30 years, and I don't want to destroy my hearing because I let some speakers or some sound systems run away from me, and it gets to being that I create some high levels of tinnitus. All right. Having said that, let's talk about what everybody wants to know against the Peachtree GaN 400, against this other dark horse I have behind me. For round 2 in my audio journey, I got the opportunity to pick up an amplifier that I've owned once before for a second time. One of my favorite pieces of audio gear that I've had, that I used to have, is a First Watt J2 GaN 30 watt Class A amplifier, a special Nelson Pass design that's been around for, gosh, 10 plus years now, maybe 10 years. And it is such a sweet amplifier, and it is a very warm, hot running amplifier. As a matter of fact, thanks to that top test meter, when I would start out with the GaN FET in this room, my average room temperatures were about 77 degrees. 2.5 hours into a listening session, I'm sweating, and top test says it's now 83 degrees in my room. It's time to swap out, turn off the old GaN FET, and let the Starkrimson do its thing. So another nice piece of what that $23 sound pressure meter can do is keep an eye on your own ambient temperatures. And that's even with the AC on, folks. That Class A amplifier warmed up my room by 5 degrees, even with AC. Okay. I'm doing this a little bit different this time. In the past, I haven't quite always talked about or illustrated all the different pieces in my system as I do these side-by-side comparisons. This time for you, I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to put in a chart, my typical listening triangle chart, which I always do, but this time I'm actually going to illustrate System 1, System 2, System 3, and how I did the listening comparisons. System 1 is not that critical. You'll be able to see that. I had cheap cabling through System 1, and as I get to System 3, things get really crazy, especially for me. However, it is System 2 that I have to focus a bucket of time with. It is System 2 that really illustrated differences I was not expecting. As impractical as System 2 is from a price perspective, it let me gain some seriously valuable insight about amplifier behavior with speakers and with sound levels. And it is System 2 where I had a demo piece of gear, a fresh piece of gear from Dan Modwright, his new tube buffer. I actually have the upgraded version with the XLRs, the balanced design, for $4,000. Yes, I plugged in a $4,000 tube buffer in between the amplifiers and my Peachtree pre-DAC. That pre-DAC, that stayed the preamplifier of choice throughout the entire listening for complete consistency among all three amplifiers. It has balanced outs, and so I was able to use that, the balanced outs, into the tube buffer with balanced outs again into each of the three amplifiers. Now, back to that. Here's where the rubber really met the road. And I have to say the 19 dB of gain on the inputs of Leo's design really showed how well it acquitted itself from a noise perspective. Now, there's so much cliche of black background, silent, dead silent operation, blah, 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 blah. However, I have to emphasize that I cannot throw those terms around lightly or understate them in the operation of this amplifier with said tube buffer. When I connected the tube buffer, Dan's tube buffer, to this amplifier, an amazing thing happened. Very little. What? An amazing thing happened. Very little. Very little. A $4,000 tube buffer connected to this amplifier provided me with very little gain. Very little extra air. Very little change in the overall sonic structure of the demo tracks that I was listening to. How is that? This thing is so solid, it's so quiet, it has such a clean reference point with such low distortion. It rendered that $4,000 tube buffer an unnecessary piece of gear. It really provided me with no relief or no serious return on investment to make it worthwhile connected to this amplifier. Now, the flip side, the super interesting part of this, and I will have to go off on a small tangent, because as many of you know, you get frustrated with reviewers who are going through demo gear all the time. Oh, so-and-so sent this, so-and-so sent them this, so-and-so is spending time with this, and they fly through the pieces of gear. There's some pretty good reviewers out there, yet they seem to have 10 new pieces of gear that they've managed to review inside of a month. It's quite impossible. I don't know how some of them do that. But your frustration is, well, what about the reliability? What about the longevity? How does it change over time? I'm going to tell you with one of my own pieces. The Peachtree GaN 400. I've had it for almost a year. And a couple of months ago, when I was doing some A/Bing with an $8,000 integrated amplifier, my GaN 400 decided to develop some left channel drift and some issues with high frequency noise. It was driving me crazy. I would plug in that $8,000 integrated amplifier with my lowly little $1,200 Inuus pulse streamer. I love that streamer. And awesome sonic signature. Nothing at all to complain about with that integrated amp. Plug the Peachtree in, the Peachtree stack with the Peachtree pre-DAC, and I was noticing some really uncomfortable high frequency noise from my left channel of my speaker. I'd switch out the cabling, I'd change the power cables, I'd change out the interconnects. Not a single bit of difference. Plugged my integrateds back in at that time, none of that sound. Everything's even keel. Plug the GaN FET 400 back in again. High frequency noise coming from the left channel. And I mean obnoxious, can absolutely hear it over the music, high frequency noise. Something was going wrong with one of the modules. Called up Peachtree, spent $30 to ship it to them. They put it on the bench. They say there's no problem. Well, I'm telling you guys there's a problem. As a reviewer with all the pieces of gear I had, and I ran through everything, they took my word for it, and they did replace that module free of charge, sent it back to me within warranty, and got that thing taken care of. Now we're back to bliss. Now I'm back to the Peachtree GaN as it was when I had it new. Then I plug in Dan's tube buffer. What happened? Well, this has an input gain of about 19 dB, as I stated. Peachtree doesn't state what their their gain is. Could it be 26? Could it be 30? If I had to guess, I would say it's 30 dB of gain, because once I put that buffer in, wow, was I hearing some significant tube hiss, or should I say that kind of tube sound hiss that you get normally from high efficiency speakers. These are not high efficiency speakers. This is 86, that's 88. Therefore, through my Opera Calais, I was hearing a significant amount of hiss through the Peachtree. Not uncomfortably so, but definitely it would go away, or I should say it would be drowned out once playback would start. So even playback at around 60 dB sound pressure level, I would not hear that hiss. The interesting part, or should I say the more interesting part, is that that tube buffer with the Peachtree had the most significant impact in the positive. It added much more air, it added much more of that typical tube holography that we like to wax poetically about when introducing tubes into a system. So, therefore, that $4,000 tube buffer sounded its best, or should I say, it imparted the best characteristics of what it's meant to do through the Peachtree connection. With the with the First Watt, that's a Class A amplifier that sounds beautiful and liquid all of its own. There was little to be gained with that tube buffer with the First Watt, so there as well. Now I know it sounds ridiculous. You got a $3,500 stack of Peachtree gear here. Who in their right mind, other than me, would connect a $4,000 tube buffer to it? Somebody who needs to know how it reacts to $4,000, $2,000, and $10,000 plus gear. I found out. Okay, so System 2 gave me the most surprises out of the three amplifiers, but yet is an incredibly complex and yet simple attribute and complement to Leo's design, that something like that actually didn't benefit this amplifier because it's already so damn good, it's already so damn quiet, and it already has such an amazing sound stage that it didn't need anything like that. Therefore, now we go to System 3. What has changed for me in System 3? How about incredible discounts and access to being able to finally add high quality cabling throughout my entire system, stuff I would never buy at retail levels on my own. Yeah, I know somebody might not like that I just said that. I don't care. It is what it is. I am a budget audiophile, even though this stuff looks expensive for you guys. As I move up in my journey and I'm able to afford more, I still like good deals. I still like high return on value. And I am not a fan of diminishing returns where I can help it. Cables are one of those things where I feel it has some of the highest diminishing returns on the money you spend. Nevertheless, I spent some money and I've got a full loom of Cardus cables behind me, Cardus Clear Reflection and Cardus Clear USB high-speed bus. So it is in System 3 where things get even more interesting with these three amplifiers. Those three amplifiers connected to Opera Calais $6,000 bookshelf speakers. For those of you who wagged your finger, how can you tell the difference? How can you hear the difference? Your system isn't high enough quality. I got cables that are now more expensive than all three of these amplifiers combined. I can hear a difference. I can hear the minute difference through my bookshelf speakers with the systems and the configurations that I have. So I wiggle my finger back at you, and you know who you are. Nevertheless, salty, huh? Yeah, a little bit, maybe, yeah. Nevertheless, System 3, when everything is well pieced together, the front end's well pieced together, I know what I'm working with, and everything else in the chain is totally fleshed out. What happens is with what's basically on average $2,500 amplifiers. When that started out, that was $2,500. This is $2,600. When this started out, it was $35, the first watt, but now can be had on secondhand market for around $2,200. I noticed that I'm operating within 90 to 95% sameness. Now, I cannot understate the overstated. The small, minute differences between a GaN FET 400, the Peachtree, this GaN FET Starkrimson Ultra, and a 30 watt Class A JFET amplifier. All three are such excellent amplifiers. All three I've handpicked for reasons, especially when it comes to second time ownership of this J2. I love it for its liquidity. I love it for how beautiful the mid-range is. I love it for how clean the highs and how detailed it is, how quiet it operates. You know, I've talked greatly about the Peachtree, how I've compared it to audio research and to balanced audio technologies. Well, I'm here to tell you that within that 90% of sameness, this Starkrimson Ultra 2.0 pulls away at that last 10%. It pulls away at that last 10% because of these speakers right here, these Ryan R610s. These are incredibly well built, super inert, incredibly detailed, monitor-like speakers. And when I mean monitor as in like studio monitors, they can be completely unforgiving of source material. When I plugged a NAD M10 with these speakers, I hated them. I haven't made a review of these speakers yet they're still here. They're still here because they're so insightful. They tell me so much about what's going on in my system. And it is with these speakers that I noticed that critical 10% difference in playback listening quality with the Starkrimson Ultra 2.0 amplifier. And here's where the Peachtree fell on its face. The Peachtree fell on its face where it is equally awesome with those lovely Italian Calais, so musical, so special. I couldn't complain. There's nothing to complain about with the three different amplifiers. I could find nothing that was really worth saying, oh, this is so much better than this on any level. Not on the highs, not on the lows, not in the mids. They're so close. I mean, they are less than 5% difference. That's how close these amplifiers are. But with these critical buggers right here, these speakers can either be super fatiguing for me, or for the first time, other than an $11,000 amplifier, I could listen for hours on end without that fatigue with the Starkrimson audio amplifier. How is that possible? It must be rolled off. It must have dulled something. Absolutely not. Leo's own figures, which I will show here, shows how completely low the distortion is of this amplifier. Super low distortion, super black backgrounds, super low noise, and it allowed me to listen to these hypercritical speakers for hours on end without fatigue. The first time ever, except with an $11,000 amplifier, folks. And speaking of that $11,000 amplifier, which I will not name for other reasons, I loved it. It was awesome. I didn't want to give it back. It was audio jewelry. It looked beautiful. It played beautiful. But because I was so fresh off of that $11,000 amplifier with this $2,600 amplifier, that it makes me once again sit there and critically think about diminishing returns. Holy cow, this $2,600 amplifier sounded every bit as 95% of sameness as that $11,000 amplifier. And as a matter of fact, another key contention of preference over my beloved JFET here is the heat. I can listen to this thing all day long. I can leave this thing on for days on end. 2.5 hours in, this thing has to be turned off. I can't take it anymore. It is too hot in this room. Well, what about any particular minuses for the first watt J2? There is one critical area, again, where the peach tree falls down with these, and unfortunately, even the J2 has a weakness. This is a less efficient speaker, but it's not so much in the highs, it's not so much in the mids, it's the fact that the J2 loses steam at 4 ohms. It drops down to 10 watts at 4 ohms. This goes to 500 watts at 4 ohms. Bass. This is where this amplifier absolutely wins against these 3 speakers with this bad boy right here. Poem to a Chinese drum. Those of you who know that track, you should know it. You should go get it. You should go listen to it. Poem to a Chinese drum. It is so dynamic. It has such high-low range. The dBs within that particular song, with how well recorded it is, goes to the super soft. We're talking 45 dB, and then all the way up, screaming up to the 85 dB or wherever you set your playback max to, on a dime. And the bass, hitting those drum notes, the texture, the sound pressure levels, and just getting it right and not bottoming out, not getting flabby, not losing the impact. This amplifier acquits itself better than many $5,000 amplifiers that I've listened to. And as a matter of fact, it outperformed the J2, and it outperformed my GaN FET, my Peachtree GaN FET 400 with these speakers. And that's why I have to keep certain items around so that I can find these key features and key differences for you guys to make these reviews worthwhile, to find those hidden nuances. Because all said and done, a lot of things can sound so similar, can sound a lot of the same, but there are preferences we each have. We may like a certain speaker better because it's more musical. It's easier to listen to for the long run. But then there's times where you need to get nitty-gritty and you need to find out what's really behind this piece of gear. Can it hold up to something that is super critical like a Ryan R610? Leo, nice job, dude. Nice job. You actually make me rethink keeping my JFET. Do I sell the first watt already even though I just got it? Do I take you up on buying one and upgrading those capacitance for $400 more? There's probably going to be a part 2 to this review in the future. I cannot endorse this amplifier enough. I cannot say enough great things about it. I don't need to talk about 10 different songs and all the different details. What you need to know is the 2 amplifiers that I love were outshone by this amplifier with a critical key piece of gear that I've kept. That's what it comes down to. It's that simple. I appreciate you all. I do have some other super more budget-friendly gear coming on board soon. I will review the entire Arylic kit that I have, the Arylic speakers, their new bookshelf speakers, with the new integrated. That's all can be had for under $1,000, and it's my bedroom set, and it's quite a lovely little kit that it is. That will be my next review. Until then, thank you again. Thank you for all the well wishes. I haven't gone anywhere. I just needed some time to catch up with my music room duties. So, take care.